Hello students, welcome to the class of Edunguru. I am Professor Sunil Kumar Vishwakarma and I am your biology faculty for the day. Students, today we are going to study one of the most important topic of biology, that is respiration. If I ask you a simple question, what is respiration? What comes in your mind? You say, sir, taking in oxygen, giving out carbon dioxide is respiration. No students, it is wrong. This is not respiration. When you take in oxygen, try and understand that oxygen travels through the blood, reaches till the cell, goes inside the cell in the mitochondria, and that oxygen in the mitochondria oxidizes glucose to give out energy in the form of ATP. That's right, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And this is what is respiration. Respiration is energy releasing process. Now you will ask, sir, then what is taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide? Students, this is breathing. But again, this is not complete definition of breathing. I tell you, breathing is process of taking in oxygen rich air and giving out carbon dioxide rich air is called as breathing. So respiration is breakdown of glucose to give energy in the form of ATP. Now when I say glucose, it is C6H12O6. What we give out is carbon dioxide and water. So glucose is complex, carbon dioxide and water is simple. So breaking of complex into simple is nothing but catabolic process. So when we breathe out, when you put your hand below your nose, you feel the warmth, you will understand that we are giving out some heat energy. So respiration is also giving out heat energy, that is exergonic process. We got two words, catabolic, exergonic. This oxygen goes in the cell, so it means the reaction of respiration takes place in the cell. So I can say it is intracellular process. Intra, within, cellular, cell. So respiration takes place inside the cell. We got three words now, catabolic, exergonic, intracellular process. So if I have to define complete respiration, how will I define? Respiration is defined as catabolic, exergonic and intracellular process in which complex substances like glucose is oxidized and carbon dioxide and water is given out as a byproduct and energy in the form of 38 ATP. Now when I use the word 38, it is a specific number which is very much important, because when you study respiration, there are two types of respiration, aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. When I say aerobic respiration, it gives out more energy, therefore 38 ATP. Anaerobic respiration gives out less energy, 2 ATP. Let's move little bit ahead. When we talk about respiration, different animals, they have different organs of respiration. The respiratory organs, you all have studied in kingdom Animalia. When we talk about phylum Porifera, they respire through their cell surface. So the respiratory organs for poriferans is normal cell surface. When we talk about earthworm you all have studied in phylum Annelida. They respire through their skin surface. So skin is meant for respiration in earthworm. When we talk about frogs, how do they respire? Because frogs are amphibians. They live on land as well as they go in water. So when they are on land, they respire by the help of lungs. When they are in water, they respire by the help of skin. When we talk about fishes, they respire through gills. When we talk about crabs, crabs they respire through book gills. When we talk about spiders, they respire through book lungs. But each and every animal has different organs for respiration. Like for insect, cockroach, you all have seen cockroach and we are all scared of cockroach. So how the cockroach respires? The cockroach respires by the help of spiracles, or you can say trachea. When we talk about humans, we all respire through lungs. But lungs are not the major, they have some small elements present in them that we call it as alveoli. So alveoli plays a very important role in respiration. So what we need to understand here, the setup of human respiratory system. When we talk about respiratory system, it starts from your nose. It goes down and down. So let's see what are the things. Now most of the things you can see, most of the things you can feel, but when you feel, it's much better. Let's understand. We breathe in, nose. So nose becomes the first part of respiratory system. it goes somewhere in the mouth. So when you breathe in, you can feel the air in your mouth, that is nothing but the pharynx. After pharynx, the air travels into the larynx, sound box. After larynx, the air travels in the trachea. From trachea, it divides into two, forming bronchi. Then the bronchi enters in the lungs. When we talk about lungs, the bronchi divides into small bronchioles. There are three types of bronchioles: primary, secondary and tertiary bronchioles. And finally, all the tertiary bronchioles will be having small grapes-like structure in a bunch that we all call it as alveoli. What we need to understand, last but most important organ, that is lungs. So in system, when we talk about, this all comes as your respiratory system. So one by one, let's try and understand the part. Focus on nose. When you look at nose, it has two openings. You can all feel those two openings. These two openings are basically called as nair. Since you see it outside, so we call it as external nair. Somewhere it is going to meet inside in the pharynx, so we call it as internal nair. When you look at the nose, you can feel it is soft here, something. This is nothing but a cartilage. This cartilage is called as mesethmoid cartilage. What is the role of the cartilage? It divides the nose into two equal halves. So we breathe through our left nasal opening or through right nasal opening. Now when we observe nose very carefully, we see nostril hairs. What is the role of the nostril hair? These hairs are meant to trap the dirt particle, because we all live in a polluted city. Every time pollution. Here and there it's pollution. So whenever we breathe in air, that air is definitely going to have some kind of dirt particles in it. So if that dirt particle enters in our respiratory system, it is definitely going to make us ill. So what is the role of this nostril hair? It traps the dirt particle. When it traps the dirt particle, your air gets filtered. But listen students very carefully. This nostril hair traps the dirt particle, but what about the bacteria that are there in the air? So when we go little bit behind the nostril hair, we have a special membrane called as mucous membrane. That mucous membrane secretes out mucus. Mucus, we all know, it's a small sticky substance that comes out through nose, right? So what is the role of the mucus? Air filtered through nostril hair, but the mucous membrane does the most important function. What is that? Traps the bacteria and kills it. So that whatever enters in your respiratory system will be a pure air, nothing dust or any bacteria. So we understood this. Let's see, we can breathe through mouth also. If I close my nose, I can breathe through mouth also. It means my nose and my mouth, they have both common opening. What is that common opening called as? It is nothing but pharynx. Pharynx is common opening for nose and mouth. But we cannot and we should never breathe through mouth. Any guess why? If we have the option to breathe, why we should not breathe? The logic behind this is your mouth is not having hair to filter the air. It has that saliva to trap that bacteria, but it is not having the nostril hair. So what we need to understand, it's a common opening, that is pharynx. Now once we have breathed in, it has gone to the pharynx. Now pharynx bifurcates into two. We need to understand. See, when I am speaking, I am not able to breathe. It's a very simple logic. And when I eat food, let's say for example, I have nothing to eat right now. What I have is saliva. So if I try to gulp in saliva, I cannot breathe at that time. It means what? There are two tubes. One is for respiration, other is for eating purpose, that you all call it as esophagus. So esophagus is here, next is the trachea. What we need to understand, something has to be there which is going to open and close both the flaps at one time. So the logic what we need to understand. After pharynx, the air travels into the most important part which produces sound. Any guess? Yes, it is larynx, your sound box. So the air travels into the larynx, that is the sound box. The larynx basically has a small opening. That opening is called as glottis. Glottis is going to have a two flap surrounding it. Vocal cord we say. These are elastic in nature, they vibrate. Every time I say, I am saying something, it is basically the sound which is coming out. But what exactly is happening? Sound is nothing but vibration. So if I am speaking, I am giving out air. Because of that air which I am giving out, vocal cord vibrates. And that frequency produces the sound. So the role of the vocal cord is just to vibrate and we are able to speak. The glottis Again, I come back to that same topic. Two opening, trachea and esophagus. Glottis has a flap above it. It is called as epiglottis. The word epi, above. Above glottis, there is a flap, so we call it as epiglottis. What we need to understand here now, when I am speaking, the epiglottis is covering the esophagus. It is not covering the trachea because I need to speak. But when I gulp in my saliva, now my epiglottis has closed the windpipe so that the saliva should not go into the trachea. So very best organ you can say, which teaches us to do one thing at one time. Some people have very wrong habit. While eating food they talk. While talking you need to give out air. When you give out air, your trachea has to be open. And while you are gulping in the food, what is going to happen? The epiglottis has to cover the trachea. So the epiglottis is confused. What to close? Food pipe or the windpipe? So it stands in between. You do whatever you want to do. And finally what we do? We start coughing. Why we cough? Because somewhere some food particle entered into the trachea and while coughing it comes out. So never talk when you are eating food. Now when we talk about trachea, trachea is called as windpipe. Windpipe, what is the structure of this trachea? When you look at this, it is not a straight tube. It is having cartilaginous ring. Cartilage we all know. So it is having a cartilaginous ring. What is the shape? It is C-shaped cartilaginous ring. So when I look at the trachea, let's say from here it starts and somewhere here it comes to. So when I measure the length, it is somewhere around 12 centimeter. 12 centimeter is the length of the trachea. The diameter of the trachea can be 2.5 centimeter. Now the trachea is made up of C-shaped cartilaginous ring, and when we take the section of the trachea and we try to see inside, what we can see. So the trachea is basically lined by ciliated epithelium. Along with this, now why this cilia is present there? There are two reasons. First reason is, when we breathe in, if we are breathing at a very fast rate, then there is a possibility that that dust particle might escape your nostril hair and reach into the trachea. So somewhere that cilia tries to trap that dirt particle. That is one part. Second, when you talk and you have gulped something in the windpipe, so when you cough, what happens? The cilia shows the ciliary action. It moves at its place, and when it moves, what happens? It pushes the food little bit up and up so that it comes back into the pharynx. So
due to a stratified ciliated columnar epithelium.
Again, mucus gland. What is the role of mucus gland? I told you earlier, is to secrete mucus. What is the role of mucus? Is to trap the bacteria and kill it. So this is second checkpoint where we can say, before entering into the bronchi and in the lungs, this is second checkpoint where the air will be again checked so that pure air enters. The trachea divides into two parts, that is called as bronchi. Now these bronchi, they enter in the lungs. After entering in the lungs, the bronchi further divides. Before that, let's understand bronchi. Bronchi, they are complete cartilaginous ring, and in trachea we have seen it was C-shaped cartilaginous ring. This is very basic difference between trachea and the bronchi. Once the bronchi enters into the lung, so we have right bronchi entering in the right lung, we have the left bronchi entering in the left lung. Bronchi further divides into bronchioles, many branches. The one which emerges from the bronchi, they are called as primary bronchioles. Primary bronchioles further divides to give rise to secondary bronchioles. Secondary bronchioles further divides to form tertiary bronchioles. The tertiary bronchioles, what they have? They have something called as grapes-like structure. We see bunch of grapes. So when we see that entire bunch, it's all small grapes. So in the tertiary bronchiole, they have that structure. What is that called as? It is called as alveoli. Most important part of respiratory system, because that is the point where there will be exchange of gases between the blood and the system. So this is alveoli. So when we talk about alveoli, can you imagine the number, how many alveoli will be present in lungs? Any random guess? Lakhs? 2 lakhs? 3 lakhs? Any random guess? No? I give you the answer. There are 750 million alveoli present in the lungs. Shocked? Yeah, 750 million alveoli. So these alveoli, they are the most important part. See, the number of alveoli will decide the sponginess, the healthiness of the lungs. So let's move on to lungs. and the alveoli detailed structure we will deal in the later part. When we talk about lungs, so we say they are paired. As we all know, we have right and we have left lung. Paired, hollow, elastic, muscular organ, somewhat pinkish in color. When we talk about lungs, right lung when we talk about, so this is my right side, so right lung will be 3-lobed and the left lung will be 2-lobed. Any idea why right side 3 and left side 2? No? Okay, I tell you. When we talk about left side 2, it basically means the left side of the body has most important organ. What is that? Heart. To accommodate it, what happens? The left lung becomes little bit smaller in size so that heart can be placed. So, when we talk about lungs, they are having membrane. They have 2 membranes basically. These membranes they are called as pleura membranes. Pleura membranes we have the 2, outer pleura and the inner pleura. When we talk about outer layer, it is called as parietal layer. The inner layer which is touching the lungs, it is called as visceral layer. So, between the outer parietal layer and the inner visceral layer, there is a space. What is that space called as? The membrane is pleura membrane. So, what will be the space? Very simple, pleural space. And that space is filled up by a fluid. What is that fluid called as? Again, very simple, pleura fluid or the pleural fluid. Now, what is the role of the pleura fluid? This fluid somewhere nourishes our lungs. When we breathe in, we breathe out, the lungs expand and contracts. So, somewhere they should get that frictionless movement. So, that is the most important role of pleural fluid. At the same time, if somebody hits you on the chest, what happens? Does that friction or that energy travels to your lungs? No. It is acting as a shock absorber. Pleural fluid absorbs all the shock and it never allows the shock to reach to your lungs, otherwise the lungs will collapse. So, that becomes the most important part of the lungs. When we talk about one of the most important part after lung, it is diaphragm, where it is present at the base of the lung. So, basically, if I talk this is my system, so somewhere here is the diaphragm. So, here all becomes my respiratory system. Below that what starts? Digestive system, as simple as it is. So, diaphragm, what is the role of the diaphragm? It defines the boundary of the lungs. Why? The lungs are like balloons. You keep on blowing air in the balloon. Keep on blowing, keep on blowing, keep on blowing. What will happen after a certain point of time? Balloon will burst out. It should not happen. So, we have 2 protections. One, when we breathe in, my rib cage is protecting my lungs not to expand more than the boundary line. At the same time, if it cannot expand in front, can it go down? Again, the answer is no. Why? From bottom, the diaphragm is protecting. So, the role of the diaphragm is somewhere to define a boundary for the lungs to expand. Coming back to the topic which I left little bit earlier related to alveolar sac. So, students, look at the screen. When we talk about alveolar sac, so this is alveolar sac. Inside the alveolar sac, there will be lots of small grapes-like structure, which I told you, it will be alveoli. So, these are all alveoli. What I will be doing, I will be taking out one alveoli out. So, when I take out one alveoli out, the structure is somewhat like this. Now, we need to understand one very important concept. This alveoli is made up of a special type of tissue. What is that tissue? It is simple squamous epithelium tissue. When I talk about simple squamous epithelium tissue, it means it is having a single layered cell. Now, look at the screen again. When we talk about alveoli, it has 2 points. One that brings the blood, other one that takes the blood. So, what brings the blood? Suraj, can you tell which blood vessel carries oxygenated blood?
Sir, artery.
Artery? Very good. Artery carries oxygenated blood. But do you know there is one artery which never carries oxygenated blood? Which is that? Pulmonary artery. When I say pulmonary artery, means the artery that comes to the alveoli. They carry deoxygenated blood of your body. Why they carry? In the alveoli, the deoxygenated blood becomes oxygenated blood. Students, look at the screen. The oxygen from the alveoli comes in the blood. At the same time, from the blood, carbon dioxide moves out. So, this blood which is moving out is called as oxygenated blood. Now, who takes the oxygenated blood? Harpreet, can you answer? The oxygenated blood is transported in our entire body by the help of what?
Sir, the oxygenated blood is carried from the lungs via the pulmonary veins to the left atrium.
Very good. But here, when we talk about this, you need to understand one thing. There is a pulmonary vein. All the veins of the body carry deoxygenated blood except pulmonary vein, which is going to carry oxygenated blood. This pulmonary vein will take all the oxygenated blood into the heart, and from heart it is pumped into the body. So this is how the alveoli going to work. Now what we need to understand here, this is all with respect to the respiratory system. Aishwarya, do you remember the number of alveoli that is present in lungs? Try to recollect. Yeah.
Sir, 750 million alveoli are present.
Excellent answer. It is 750 million alveoli present in lungs. When we talk about respiratory system, these are all the parts that are involved. So students, for today, this was the module what we have done. In the next lecture, we are going to focus on mechanism of breathing, the transport of gases, and various respiratory disorders and respiratory volumes. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much. In this module, we have learned respiration is catabolic process, exergonic process, and intracellular process. Respiration is release of energy in form of ATP in mitochondria under aerobic condition. Different animals have different organs for breathing. Respiratory system consists of nose, nostrils, nasal chamber, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, and lungs. There are 750 million alveoli present in lungs. Pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood and pulmonary vein carries oxygenated blood. To watch the next video, please attempt the following questions.